Despite mainly covering cozy games in the past few videos, deep in my heart I have always loved grit, brutality, and the very much masculine fantasy of holding the line with a machine gun a la Rambo. And so when I heard that there was a game that would allow me to do just that, which was heavily inspired by Battle Brothers and War Tales, I just had to see if they would actually deliver. This is Space Scum, a sci-fi take on the tactical mercenary management formula where you'll explore various planets, take on contracts, get your face blown off either by a shotgun shell or the claw of an alien beast, and then do it all over again to build up the most legendary space crew in the whole galaxy. Now, this is not a game for everyone with its unforgiving difficulty and permadeath system in regards to your mercs, but if you like building your own crew story in a procedurally generated world with various different scenarios and a highly addictive gameplay loop, then let's dive in and see if this is worth keeping an eye on. Quick note, this video is sponsored by Soul Survivor Games, the developers, but since this is a review of the demo, I am allowed to say whatever I want, whether it's pros or cons, which we'll definitely get into later. But as always, if this sounds like your type of game, make sure to wishlist Space Scum on Steam or try out the free demo which is coming out on February 19th. The links are in the description and pinned comment section of the video. Thank you to the devs for supporting the channel, and let's get right into it. To fully explain how this game works, I'd have to start from the beginning, because one of the most appealing features of this genre as a whole is your ability to tell your own story. Right from when you start a game, the first thing you'll encounter is the Origin Selection screen, which are various scenarios to determine how your crew will start their adventure. These scenarios can range from basic setups such as starting out as a crew of escaped convicts, to being a lone bounty hunter on the hunt for their next big target. There are even scenarios that are way out there, like you can be a crew of sentient space lizards who wield primarily melee weapons with the goal of establishing a new empire, to even adventuring as a hacker with their two loyal robot companions to keep them company. Now, while there are a lot of interesting ways to start the game, since this is also my first time experiencing it, I had to play the tutorial scenario. And in this setting, we start the game by escaping a forced labor camp. We then select an appropriate name for our crew, a seed for the map because like I said earlier, the maps are procedurally generated, making every campaign feel different, and finally, you can also customize your crew symbol. There are a couple of more options here that are disabled in the demo version, so for now this is the scenario we're starting the game with. If you've never played any of the games I mentioned earlier, like Battle Brothers or War Tales, then the mechanics of this game might sound a little overwhelming with all its mercenary and resource management, but to simplify things, first I'd like to start with the game's combat system. The combat in Space Scum is an octagonal tile-based turn-based combat system. You start a battle by first determining the placement of your crew, whether that's putting your snipers in the back and placing your melee and shield units at the front, or strategically placing them in ways where they can get easy access to nearby covers. Once you've placed your mercs, you can then start the battle, where each side will then take turns taking actions based on the turn order, which will be determined by your individual mercenary's initiative stat. Now, what separates this game from the rest of the genre is the fact that this is sci-fi instead of fantasy. So that obviously means that guns take a more prominent role in its combat, and that changes the whole vibe. Initially, you'll probably think that it'll just be the same as utilizing archers, right? Nope. This is that on crack. If combat in Battle Brothers felt like a slow, deliberate shield wall grind, combat in Space Scum completely captures the feeling of a high-stakes shootout. Because most of the danger is ranged, the positioning during battles is totally different, and angle starts to matter a lot more. When you've taken a strong high ground position, for example, with a full crew wielding rifles, it can literally turn into helldivers for your enemies. And of course, the reverse is also true if you position your crew wrong. So while it might take a little bit too much inspiration from Battle Brothers' combat system, it does still feel unique once you're actually the one controlling the reins and making the decisions. Now, beneath all of that, the decisions you take turn by turn are influenced mainly by two things. Your positioning, like I mentioned earlier, because cover and elevation matters in this game, but also you have to take into account how many resources you have, AP and FP. Action points get consumed with every action, such as during movement, when you take a shot, raise a shield, or even swap weapons. Focus points, however, get used up alongside AP when you do specifically attack moves. So during battle, a lot of what you're going to be thinking about is how do I get the best angle for each of my individual men while minimizing the angles for the enemy? Do I shoot a lower percentage shot because it's safer? Or do I try to take a better position, sacrificing an attack on this turn for a stronger attack on subsequent turns? Do I raise my shield? Do I teleport my melee units into the enemy lines? Or would putting them close mean I end up accidentally shooting an ally? And all of these things you will be considering, knowing that death in this game means permadeath for your mercenary. It doesn't matter how long you've had your merc or whether it's your best unit with all the investments and gear. If you mess up in Space Scum and they die, you can't bring them back. That's what makes not just this game, but this genre as a whole so appealing to me. The high stakes means it keeps you on your toes even when the combat is slow, and when you safely win difficult battles with 0 losses, it's all the more satisfying. However, despite that, there are of course some things that I hope they can improve on in regards to combat in the upcoming updates. One of the biggest issues is on the enemy side of things. While there are a wide variety of creatures to fight, with great looking designs by the way, the problem is that they all essentially play the same. Melee units will try to get close to attack, and ranged units will try to get close enough to shoot, and that's about it. What I'd like to see are enemies with abilities that make encounters genuinely interesting. For example, in Battle Brothers, there are huge beast enemies that jump tiles and displace your units if they land on them. There are monsters that constantly teleport, which hard counters melee focus builds, and there's even shapeshifters and witches that seduce, debuff, or send your men fleeing. And when these unique enemy units get mixed up together in an encounter, it results in so much variety that encounters can still feel unique hundreds of hours in. In Space Scum, once I geared my men, the depth was gone. Just position on a high ground, unleash a billion bullets, rinse and repeat. Another thing is regarding the enemy AI. They're just not super smart at the moment, with the tactic of just letting them come to you working like 95% of the time. However, on the brighter side, since this is a demo, I have high hopes that they're going to be implementing these changes as the development moves forward. We know that there's a difficulty option that's going to be implemented as seen in the origin selection screen, and based on the devlogs, the devs have also said that they are actively experimenting with different varieties of attacks for the enemies, and we can actually see a little bit of that from the bile husks in the game. My only wish regarding the difficulty settings is that hopefully it's not just the usual enemies will do more damage and have higher health and armor that most games have, because that will just make the game tedious. After all, the fun in tactical RPGs comes from actually needing to use tactics and adjusting your strategies and builds depending on what you're expecting to fight. It's not as fun when the solution is just to brute force everything with superior firepower. So that's combat. Now let me show you the Overworld. This is where you'll spend half of your playtime. It's procedurally generated, so every playthrough will be a little different, and here you'll be represented by your rover, which you'll use to move around, interact with various settlements, and even engage with enemy outposts or roaming enemies. But the most important thing of being in the Overworld is that this is where you manage everything, starting with your mercenaries. Whenever you're in a settlement, you'll get access to the labor market, and here is where you can start recruiting more men to fill your ranks. These men can range from cheap, inexperienced workers whose only background is in physical labor, to more experienced candidates such as veterans of the Imperial Navy, to even professional assassins, which would obviously cost more both in the initial recruitment fee and their daily wage. However, what I like about the recruitment system is that just because someone is more expensive with already higher stats to begin with, doesn't necessarily mean that they're a better unit. Each individual mercenary has specific traits based on race, background, as well as potential. So depending on what the actual numbers look like and what skills they're talented in, a lowly welder may have the potential to be your strongest sniper if you know what to look for. Aside from the individual stats, there's also gearing, leveling, perks, as well as weapons to take account of in order to fully customize your build. And you'll do this for all 8 of your men, allowing for a wide variety of playstyles. You can have a crew of long-range gunners, melee-focused builds, hacking builds, shielded units, and everything in between. Another aspect of the Overworld is the contracts, which is your main way of making money in the game, not only to fund your expensive upgrades, but also to pay for your crew's wages, food, medicine, and equipment repair. They start off very easy, giving you delivery missions, vermin extermination, or clearing out local bandit outposts. But once you get a little stronger, they'll send you off for big game hunts, as well as fighting the more established factions in the galaxy. To me though, this is where Space Scum can most likely improve the most during the game's development. There's just not a lot of variety right now in the types of contracts that you do, mostly revolving around fighting a specific enemy. And like I said earlier, the enemies currently feel mostly the same, so once you've done one of the contracts, you've pretty much done everything. Compared to its competitors like Battle Brothers, over there not only do we get contracts, but also escort quests, investigations, patrols, and even helping out other factions in their battles. Now, since we're comparing this game to what inspired it in the first place, there's a couple of things from that game that I'd like to see here as well. One of the first things I noticed when traversing the overworld in Space Scum is that it feels dead compared to other games. Yes, there's a lot of monsters and mercenaries wandering around, but they do absolutely nothing. Even when you accidentally engage them, they don't stop you from retreating, and they turn more into annoyance than threat. In Battle Brothers, with or without you, the world will move. The villages get attacked, caravans get raided, even your men will have events of their own which contains minor stories and sometimes even rewards. My men will literally flirt with villagers, get into fist fights, or give each other pep talk to boost morale. And the same goes for all the other factions in the overworld. Things are always happening, and the unpredictability adds to the variety. Another thing is, hopefully, they implement something similar to the late game crisis events. These are world-ending events that happen in later days in-game, which completely flips the map on its head. From undead invasions to civil wars, not only was it great for storytelling, but for mechanically challenging your build as well. And the world of Space Scum is absolutely perfect for this. In the lore, we know that the Varansaurs want to carve out a new empire. Maybe there will be an interplanetary war, or maybe we'll have to fight the empire themselves when they try to enslave the whole galaxy. The possibilities are endless, and I'd love to see this kind of endgame mechanic spice things up in future updates. Speaking of future updates, let's talk about what we know is upcoming in Space Scum's future. Number one is that there are going to be more planets to explore. We kinda got a taste of this in the demo, which gave us access to a hot, arid desert planet, as well as a planet with a never-ending snowstorm needing us to wear appropriate gear. But looking at the screenshots for the game, it seems we're also going to be exploring a jungle planet in the near future. I'd love to see more because with the sci-fi setting, we're not just limited to biomes. We could also have battles in futuristic urban cities, moon surfaces, or even an alien colony filled with tentacles and man-eating predators. Another thing is vehicles. In the demo, there are resources disabled relating to a store ship. There's a vehicle tab currently disabled as well, which I assume would be where we could either customize or upgrade our rover. There will also be new types of contracts which I'm very much excited about, and based on a previous devlog released on the publisher's channel, contracts such as escape missions, assassinations, kidnapping, and more are in the works, which sounds very exciting, as these contracts will add to the variety of things to do in the game. Instead of the goal being to kill everyone, in these new contracts, it might be to kill a specific target, hack or steal an item, or get your men out safely against stronger or more numerous foes. Lastly, it was also mentioned in the same devlog video that they are planning on adding more map variety, specifically for the overworld encounters. Maps with unique rock formations, crashed spaceships, and more are coming in the future. If you've got some free time, the demo is free on Steam and has about 2 hours worth of storyline to introduce you to the game's world and its mechanics, which is more than enough to determine if this is right up your alley. However, if you prefer a more relaxed or guided experience instead of a sandbox, then it might be wiser to check out the other games I've covered on the channel, like Welcome to Elderfield from the last video. A big shout out to Villain in Glasses, a member of our Paladin Regalia tier. Thank you for your support, and thank you as well to all of our regular patrons and YouTube members. If you enjoyed the video and would like to support the channel, please feel free to join either of those for exclusive content, shoutouts at the end of the video, and early access to the upcoming ones I make. Otherwise, a simple like and subscribe are more than enough to help. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!